Today we will try a very special boat, the AMER CENTO quad. AMER from its yard that builds it, CENTO because it's 100 feet long. Quad is for four cabins. No, there are 5. 4 decks. No, there are 3. 4 because it has 4 engines. Let's start then from the engine room. But couldn't they install 2 engines like all other boats? They have mounted 4 engines to achieve the power necessary to push this 30 metres. Of course, they could choose engines from another builder, but wanted to use the Volvo Penta technology. Instead of the traditional shaft-line propulsion system, there are the IPS pod drives. Each of these groups has 2 propellers facing the bow that, instead of pushing the hull, have a traction action. There are 4 pod drives, so in total 8 propellers against the 2 or 3 propellers that we would find if this boat had shaft-line propulsion. What are the advantages? Propulsive efficiency and manoeuvrability. Let's see. Manoeuvring a yacht of 30 metres requires a great deal of experience. A ship of this size and weight has a great deal of inertia, so it takes a lot of energy to make it move. But then it is necessary to be able to stop it, because it has so much momentum. How have they solved all these problems? With the IPS propulsion system governed by the joystick. On this unit we have 4 engines and 8 propellers that are not fixed, but rotate around a vertical axis to direct their thrust in every direction. Here's the result. Turning it is really very easy. And if you want, you can also increase the speed of this rotation. But the most amazing manoeuvre is the translation, that is, the lateral movement of this hull that is nearly 30 metres, with no bow or stern thrusters. Fantastic! And look at the agility of this 85-ton hull, the speed with which the stern moves. I've spoken a lot about its technical aspects. Now, before sailing, let's take a look at the beauty that is the AMER CENTO quad. I want to start from the lower deck, where the guest cabins are. There are 4, and they are all large and beautiful, with plenty of room for the wardrobe, and all with private bathroom. The stern ones are slightly more comfortable. Just think that this version of the AMER CENTO quad has more room for cabins than those with 2 or 3 engines, because the engine room, behind the bulkhead, is smaller on this hull. Because even though there are 4 engines, they are smaller and located further aft. In addition to the 4 guest cabins, there are 3 for the crew. But the owner's cabin? Where is it? It's on the main deck, toward the bow. To reach it, we go through the studio. Here it is. They have left so much space around the bed, it makes a really enjoyable environment to live, not just to stay overnight. There are walk-in closets and 2 bathroom areas. The living room has been furnished with a sofa area for 12 people and an extendable dining table, but the layout can of course be changed as well as the decor. But on sunny days it is very nice to stay outside. In the aft cockpit, the forward part of the deck house, or on the fly, set up with dining area, wet bar, sun deck with jacuzzi and wooden flooring. The hardtop can be opened.
Usciti dal porto passiamo dal joystick.
Coming out of the port, we move from the joystick to the throttle. We start sailing and testing this AMER CENTO quad. It employs 4 D13 engines that could deliver a maximum of 900 horsepower, but this unit was set at 800 horses for a total power of 3,200 horsepower.
Questi diesel hanno una cilindrata.
These diesels are 12,780 cubic centimetres, have 6 cylinders, direct injection, 4 valves per cylinder and a double-stage turbocharger.
C'è un dato che mi sorprende. L'AMER CENTO Quad ha un
Here is something that surprises me. The AMER CENTO Quad has a fuel tank with a capacity of 10,000 litres. Now, filling up our car costs €70. To fill the AMER CENTO Quad costs around €14,000 in Europe. Let's hope at least we can cover a lot of distance with it.
Per esempio, siamo a 800 giri minuto, la velocità è di 8,5 nodi.
For example, we're at 800 RPM, speed is 8.5 knots and total consumption is 30 litres an hour, which means about 4 litres for every mile or little more. Excellent.
Ma attenzione perché...
But beware, because speed is very important for fuel consumption. For example, I've increased just by 1 knot. We're 9.5 knots and consumption has gone up to 60 litres an hour. It has doubled the consumption per hour. Consumption per mile has grown as well, but not as much. We are 6.7 litres per mile.
Su questa unità sono montate le pinne stabilizzatrici della Humphrey.
Humphrey's stabilising fins are mounted on this unit, which have an effect not only on the bottom while you are stopped, to keep the boat as still as possible, but also during navigation, as is happening right now.
Ora passiamo dall'assetto dislocante, cioè quello che la nave ha quando è ferma all'ancora.
Now we move from dislocation, that is, the state that the vessel is in when it drops at anchor, completely immersed, into planing, that is when the hull begins to rise due to the hydrodynamic thrust. This happens more or less at this speed, 12 knots.
Questa è una velocità di trasferimento alla quale si può navigare ininterrottamente, anche di notte, i rischi a bassa velocità.
This is a transfer speed to which you can sail uninterrupted, and even at night. The risks at low speed are minimal and the comfort is maximum. The passengers can rest. The skipper, well, no, the skipper shouldn't sleep, even though it is so silent that it could also happen to him.
Le condizioni non sono ideali, ma a bordo, sì.
The conditions are not ideal, but on board, yes. On board, it really is very good. At this time, we are 18 knots, 18 litres per mile. We can do more. We take 20 knots.
Siamo a 2000 giri. La velocità
We are at 2,000 RPM. The speed is 21 knots and the fuel consumption is 20 litres per mile. Have a look. I'll accelerate a little bit more.
Sono arrivato a 2200 giri minuto e la velocità in questo momento...
I've arrived at 2,200 RPM. The speed at this time is 24 knots and fuel consumption is 23 litres per mile. It has risen very little. At this speed range, IPS performance is at a maximum compared to the shaft line propulsion system. I wanted to be sure that the stabilising fins were doing their job.
Ora, siccome questi motori sono stati tarati a...
Now, since these engines have been calibrated at 800 horses, 100 less than their maximum potential, we can keep them at full throttle for a consecutive hour without them getting overheated. If you have time to test, eh?
Scherzi a parte, ci basta tenerli pochi istanti al massimo per...
Seriously though, it just takes a few moments to find out that the maximum speed of this boat is 26.5 knots, with the 2,280 RPM engines, which are set to 800 horsepower. Allow us not to just keep them for a long time, but also to sail for thousands of hours every year.
Il cantiere dichiara una velocità massima più elevata di...
The yard declares a higher maximum speed by a couple of knots, but you have to consider some factors like the amount of fuel on board, more than 50% right now, with full load of water, and also the hull and propellers are not perfectly clean. 27.3 knots. Well, we're approaching the yard's figures.
Forse non è così semplice realizzare un'imbarcazione con 4 motori se pensiamo alla complessità dell'installazione, a tutti gli impianti.
Perhaps it is not so easy to build a 4-engine vessel, if we think about the complexity of the installation to all the related equipment. But the engine room is smaller than a vessel with only 2 or 3 engines, so there is more space for the cabins. The performances we have seen are excellent. The manoeuvrability, well, unmatched compared to the traditional propulsion systems, and then, all in all, 4 engines also give me a greater sense of security. That's why I like this AMER CENTO quad.